What's up, everybody? My name's Charlie Savage, and today I'm here with my co-host Ethan Odenthal. We're here for a third episode ever of Outer Rim Radio, and today we're here to talk about a book, which is a rarity because I almost never really read, which is different than Odie, who reads all the time. We're basically the opposite ends of the spectrum for that. So talking about this book will actually be very interesting because we'll have different ways about how we feel with books. So.
And you also listen to the audiobook, which I love audiobooks. I have to listen to audiobooks a lot because I drive for work, but I read this in the physical copy. So I think we'll have a lot to talk about here. We got really opposite ends of this book, so I think it would be cool.
Yeah, which I'm excited to talk about. But of course, as always, we have to talk about some news first.
Jake. So you hear my clicky clack. Yeah, I know. I was.
Yeah, I have a mechanical keyboard, which is like great for the podcast, so I could just have the loudest keyboards.
I just wanted to respond. That's Jake, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
our wholesome, ever-present mod.
Oh man, yeah. So before we get started, talking about this book, which there's a lot to talk about, we actually have somehow more news than what we had 3 weeks ago.
Also, there's actually something I want to talk about that we didn't put in the notes that I'll get to later.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I think the first and biggest thing, or I guess it kind of just ties into this, is the return of Lucasfilm games, or LucasArts games. That's what they were. But no, they're Lucasfilm games, which is what they were before. They were LucasArts. But basically, it's back, which is great. But it's not just like publishing in studios. It's literally omnipresent.
Yeah, sorry.
That was pretty funny. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was funny.
Sorry, I lost my entire train of thought.
No, you're talking about how they switched their name.
Yeah, but now we're actually able to have Lucas back, and it's not just like a publishing studio. It's an entire brand. Like, they're working with other studios and publishers, which is really good. And I think it'd be smart for Disney to eventually to buy out some studios if they want to grow it. But for now, there's so many people that want to work on Star Wars, and just having that, basically that limited access with just EA was a terrible thing. Sadly, I mean, they did good games here and there. Like, Fallen Order is a fantastic game. Like, don't get me wrong.
Star Wars Battlefront 2 had some serious.
Yeah, I actually love that game, but and it has a good story. But although it's weird that they gave Han Solo a beard, and I'll never get over it, and I don't think Fish ever will.
Yeah. God, poor Fish. Yeah, no, it's one of those things where I think it's a good push and moving forward. I mean, Disney did bring in some studios for the VR versions of Star Wars.
Yeah, that's true.
The VR kind of games they made. So I think we're going in the right direction here. I'm excited to see. How do I put it? I'm excited to see expansion and growth. I think that's just what we need. They constrained themselves too much, and it just became unhealthy.
Yeah, but I also wonder if that whole EA deal was like, if it was really like, we want EA to make these couple games, and this is the only way we're going to get them to make these couple games, or if it was really about like, we want EA in the future to work on Star Wars games, and this is the only way this one company will agree to it.
Hey, we never sat in those meetings, so we'll never know.
Right. But that's just something I wondered about.
Yeah. But they announced some pretty cool stuff. I mean, before we get into the Star Wars stuff,
they announced
the new Indiana Jones game.
Which is the most random thing, but I'm glad. But I'm also like, I don't know how that's going to work.
They're notorious. There's been a couple Indiana Jones games. I mean, some of them are literally as old, if not older than us, and they're all a garbage.
Yeah, except Lego Indiana Jones, which is fire.
But we're not really here to talk about it. It's just more of an aside because it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean, it has directly to do with Star Wars news. And
yeah,
I've seen people make the point that it's so weird that Indiana Jones is coming back to video games, because that's basically what Uncharted and Tomb Raider are. They're literally just Indiana Jones inspired intellectual properties.
Yeah.
So, and it's also weird because Bethesda's now owned by Microsoft, and Microsoft had time exclusivity with Tomb Raider for a bit. So there's just like that whole weird thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, on to Star Wars news. Uh, Ubisoft is making an open world Star Wars game, which I have no idea where this team's going with this direction. So uh, for those of you that don't know, uh, the game's being developed by Massive Games. It's going to be an open world game. Yves Guillemot, who's the CEO of Ubisoft, said it's like nothing we've ever seen before in Star Wars games. So I think we can rule out any sort of idea that it's going to be basically any pre-existing IP. It's not going to be it's not going to be like a KOTOR, obviously, but it's not going to
No.
be like. But I think that also kind of rules out the idea of it being like close to the PS2 bounty hunter game, which I think would at least be possible in terms of having a bounty hunter protagonist.
Yeah, I mean, for how do I put it this way? It's being developed by Massive
Yeah,
Entertainment.
yeah,
And
which is known
Massive
for The
Entertainment,
Division,
Tom
Assassin's Creed, and Far Cry
Clancy,
3.
yeah, and like Far Cry, The Divisions, they did one of the Assassin's Creed games. They're really good with those like action semi open worlds where
Right.
it's like some of them are really railroady, but we'll just kind of have to wait and see. I would say open world in the video game industry is such a broad term.
Yeah.
Do not get your hopes up on how open world this is going to be. You're not going to be flying around the galaxy wherever you choose. Like, I think it will
Yeah.
be a format like kind of KOTOR was, where it's like, hey, you can fly between these planets and do this stuff, but these are the only planets. Like, this is
Yeah.
where you can go and you can hop back and forth and you could explore very limited areas, but it's not going to be Skyrim.
Yeah.
It's not going to be some massive RPG. It's just not what that studio does,
But
which isn't a bad thing.
yeah. Although I'm honestly wondering if it I think the biggest question for me is, does this game focus on one planet or does it have you going between planets?
Yeah, we'll wait and
Because
see.
not to be like, oh, it's going to be Red Dead, but in terms of like Red Dead, you have obvious Yakuza does it too, where there's basically like you're in this one world the entire time, but there are like certain chapters where you go to different places and do different things. And in terms of like a cool story to tell, I think if you have the Far Cry 3 team working on a game, it'd be cool if it was something like a Star Wars version of Far Cry. Like if you are like kind of like a rebel cell that is eventually becomes part of the rebellion, but you're like defending this home planet from the Empire and doing all these things. I think that would be really interesting. And I think for a game that'd be like a decently reasonable way to make like it a fun single player game where you actually kind of can be like a one man army.
Yeah, no, that's just kind of what that studio does too.
Yeah.
I think that would be very reasonable. It would kind of rein it in. Because kind of the problem with the Star Wars game is the same thing with the Star Wars movies, shows. Like, what do you focus on? Star
Yeah.
Wars means so much. It can be, hey, we're going across the galaxy, going on this really mythic journey, or it can be like bounty hunters. It can be the Jedi. It can just be about war, as we've seen with the Star Wars Battlefront games, which are widely popular just by them having a really narrow focus.
Yeah.
So I think if they rein themselves in and really just focus on, okay, let's make this a game that has quality and some world building, and the gameplay can really be whatever else. Because most Star Wars fans aren't trying to play the same. All the Star Wars games are radically different.
Yeah. Also, so the other thing I wanted to talk about that I forgot to throw in was part of the press release when this game was announced. On StarWars.com, they said it's time for like the video games of Lucasfilm Games to have like their own Big Bang, which implies to me they're gonna do like what they did with the TV shows and announce like a bunch of them. But of course, the video game industry, it works differently. Like you can't just announce a bunch of things like that, especially when working with different companies, NDAs, different hiring time periods. Like these things aren't all gonna come out at once.
It's
And
like a book, and they don't all come out at once. Production is so different than just making a show where it's like, hey, we made it, we've edited it. You know, you have pre-production, production, post,
yeah,
and then you send it out. In a video game, it's more complicated in the book for sure, but there's
yeah,
so many things you have to do. You have to patch it. There's so many
yeah,
layers of coding and design there just to make the game, and then you have to worry about, okay, I need this licensed with these with these
Yeah.
companies for Xbox
In like
and
a whole media
PlayStation,
cycle, the hype, the sell, the marketing. Like
and
PR and
everything
marketing are so
comes
much
out in
bigger in
November.
gaming because like Disney can have a PR department. They can have a PR department just for Star Wars, you know. But it's like each video game publisher is going to have theirs, and if they're going to do, 5 to 10 games, that's 5 to different PR teams basically. That's 5 to 10 advertising teams. And 5 to 10 studios, maybe even more cuz studios collaborate on games. So if you have a big game, you're like, well, we're going to need help with this extra studio to make assets and like share information between them. So,
Yeah,
but
it'll be complicated.
yeah, and we agreed that later on we'll do another episode just about Star Wars video games, which I think will be fun. I need to play a lot more of them, to be quite frank, which that'll be fun. Because mostly what I've played is like I played the Lego Star Wars games, I've played Fallen Order, the pod racing game on PS2, and
Have you
like
played Republic Commando?
no, I have it, but I haven't played it.
Okay, that is by far one of the best Star Wars games ever.
I was
Well,
planning on
I don't want to
streaming
get
that
into
soon.
the weeds on that, but that game,
Also,
I want a
fact
remake
that
of that
Gregor
game.
is around, so I'm glad they allowed like that Commando Squad to basically still be a thing in a little bit of Clone Wars.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to actually learn about that because I know that's like a game I've never heard anyone ever talk bad about since it came out. Like, when did they come out? In like 2006? Something like
Republic
that?
Commando.
Yeah. It was one of those games for like the Revenge of the Sith game, Lego Star Wars.
2005.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if it was 05 or 06. But yeah,
Early 05.
yeah. But that was like what's considered like the prime year for Star Wars because they got so many games just that one year, which is absolutely nuts. But I definitely need to play that. But let's oh yeah, like I was gonna
We
say
have
we're gonna do a Star Wars episode about Star Wars games, and then we're going to pitch Star Wars games as a segment in that, which will be really fun.
yeah, that'll be fun for
Which
my little writer brain.
I could do that like every week because I keep coming up with something. There's one game I know I love that I just want to talk about.
Yeah, but that was the concept that we like
Yeah.
when we talked about this show. We're like, we're just gonna pitch Star Wars movies and TV. We're like, yeah, no one wanted to watch that, but it was basically just nerd boner. Like,
yeah,
yeah, that sounds awesome.
It was a great idea. And then, all right, so the next topic is the weirdest rumor going around, which I don't believe, which is Robert Downey Jr. as Thrawn. Apparently, it came from someone's Patreon. I forget who, but that like literally just doesn't make sense to me. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's
like one of those things that'd be too distracting.
There's maybe 4 like low level media outlets who are even talking about this.
Yeah.
And if you look at the imagery for it that people have done, like done concept art, it looks horrible. He just doesn't fit. He just does like there's no way. And that's not Disney's MO. It's just not.
Yeah, also why make Iron Man a villain and like it'd be so distracting because Robert Downey Jr. is basically just Iron Man at this point. Like he's literally just Tony Stark. Like so
they're gonna want to pick someone who let me tell you about my Ewok game. All right. We'll get back to that because
I won't. I'm interested, Jake. No,
yeah, Jake, you type it out when we talk about this. They need someone who represents, kind of has that calm, collected, calculating, public face.
Yeah.
For that character, which is what they do a lot. They when you have a mysterious nobody character, they pick a mysterious nobody actor, and then they're huge.
Yep.
That's Star Wars' MO. This is Disney's MO. They don't like
they almost
to build
rarely ever
pick
pick people you've heard of.
And when
especially
when
they do it, it's like, yeah, we know the guy that plays like James Earl Jones is Darth Vader, but like that was before Coming to America came out. We had a reason to meme about it.
No,
because when that came out, it was like, oh, that's Darth Vader. Did you know that? That's neat.
Makes sense.
But yeah,
Oh man.
but I actually really like the idea that it's Lars Mikkelsen, which is the guy that played Thrawn in Rebels, just coming back. Which I'm fine with that. That would make more sense. I think Katie Sackhoff worked out really well,
Yeah.
and I think like
He has the face shape of Thrawn. That's the thing, though. He has that very angular,
yeah,
sharp lined face. I mean,
like
he's very Danish. He's very Danish.
right, and I just think that would totally work out for him. Like, and I would love, I just feel like it'd fit. It'd be weird recasting Thrawn again. Like,
It's just a lot of movement that I don't see with Disney. Anyways, that's baseless. Let's talk about the thing that's actually kind of cool.
yeah,
Liam Neeson saying he wants to reprise his role as Qui-Gon Jinn,
yeah,
which one, like you were kind of saying, the Obi-Wan show's coming out,
yeah.
so there's reason for that.
Qui-Gon's literally the first Force Ghost. There seem to be heavy, at least rumor implications that there's going to be tons of flashbacks. So I think if it has to deal with, Liam Neeson being a Force ghosted Qui-Gon, like that makes sense that you could have Liam Neeson like be there as a Force ghost, and then you could also have him with Ian McGregor doing flashbacks and like things of that, because you can also just see like it. Like I think it makes sense for him to reflect on his like early Jedi training as the Jedi kind of stray away from like what they did, because that led to like 66 and the Clone Wars in general. So I
Mm-hmm.
think him going back to like those original teachings and Qui-Gon holding on to those would be like very interesting and telling, and like I think that'd be a good point for the show.
For sure.
But yeah. Also, Qui-Gon Jinn or Liam Neeson still has his lightsaber for playing Qui-Gon Jinn, which apparently got posted around. But I was like, that's funny. That's nice.
He really enjoyed it. I mean, that's the thing about Qui-Gon Jinn. For the prequels, he was the character who was the most serious and had the most depth. Yeah, like other characters were serious, but they were just assholes.
Right?
Mace Windu, character's pretty much just not a nice guy.
Yeah.
Qui-Gon was serious, meditative. He felt like a Jedi. And Liam Neeson does well in those kind of roles. So
Yeah. He very like I like that character a lot just because he always felt calm and focused.
yeah.
Like you could tell, like just, when you watch the Fate of Menace, you're just like, yeah, that's like the actual like proper Jedi. Like you could tell he's always cool, calm, and collective. He's always giving advice. But he's also not like inactive. Like he doesn't really hesitate at any point. He's just,
He
it
felt
just
like a
feels like he's
Jedi
always
Master.
ready. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, for
which
sure. Where it's like other characters didn't get that. Anyways, we're getting off in the woods about why we love
Qui
Qui-Gon Jinn
Gon.
so much.
Yeah.
Uh, you ready to talk about this book?
I'm ready to talk about this book. You want to kick it off, bud?
Yeah. Well, do we want to address? Do you want to read what Jake said in the chat real quick?
All right, here we go. I'm going to read verbatim what he said. All right. After you create your Ewok, you are banished from the village and you are tasked with surviving amongst the Ewok traps as well as the Empire's troop. It's a 3D action game with crafting and survival elements. I definitely didn't just come up with that. Also, I'd want it to be cel shaded or something. Nothing realistic. I'm not even against it. I just think that you could do a better plot.
Yeah. See,
I want
Jake,
an Ewok 3D platforming adventure game.
I'm with you. Jake,
You
we'll give you time. We'll give you time. We haven't
like,
came up with our pitches yet, so maybe that'll
yeah.
be a segment as we tell people, hey, we can at least get.
I'm
I'm
not a
not a
writer.
writer, my guy. You can be. Anyone can be a writer. Don't even get me started.
You
on
just have to add random depth for no reason.
And then his dad died. He's an orphan.
Yeah.
No, but I think that's a funny idea. I just wanted to acknowledge that because
Yeah, it's pretty great.
Ewoks. Let's talk about this book. Do you want me to start?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Okay. So just for context, I am an avid reader and I write like no one's business. I'm aspiring novelist. I love books.
I love books.
I'm basically only saying that because I want to take a holistic approach, and kind of view this book as a product, not necessarily as just the writing itself. And also, I do have some pretty quote unquote major complaints, but I don't want to make it seem like I hate the book. Like, there's a lot of reasons I really like this book. Charlie, you kind of said like this is like a near 10 out of 10 for you.
Yeah, this is like for me, I feel like this is the best book I've ever read. But I also feel like the reason I like it is because it's not like other books I've ever read. And I feel like a lot of people love like books are really good for like lore building and really filling out the world, and I think it accomplishes that to
Yeah.
an
Oh, okay.
extent. But not to skip ahead, but like one of your complaints that I feel the opposite because that's one of the reasons I don't like books, and we'll talk about that later, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, no, no, no. Yeah. I mean,
Not to jump
these are all
ahead.
bullet points in our script, so we'll get to it. But man, Charlie, can you pull up the cover art
Well,
by Joseph Meehan? Well, oh, it's right there. Yeah, I didn't
yeah,
even
it's
think
I
about
was
that.
like, well, we're kind of there.
Yeah. So the only thing we're missing in this cover art is
Our boy Loden, and
Loden Great
everyone's
Storm.
legs. But I have a
Yeah,
link
which
to I did actually link. Oh, great. It's not working. That's fun. But I did link like the link to the art. I was going to put it in chat, but apparently you can't just do the text button, hit enter on in Twitch chat. But I dropped it in there for Jake to look at the full cover art.
yeah, and just first of all, you got to give Joseph Meehan. I'm hoping I'm saying his name right. Some props.
Yeah.
This is. I've read a lot of books. I've read a lot of sci-fi. I've read a lot of fantasy. I've read a lot of mystery. I read a lot of horror. I read a lot of everything. This is one of the best books covers I've ever seen.
Yeah, the
I
art
did.
is so good.
I pre-ordered this. I will say that. But my girlfriend, also aspiring writer, both we read all the time, and I showed her this cover. She was just like, "Wow, that makes me want to buy a book." And no matter what people say, and Charlie, you can attest to this. You study marketing.
Yeah.
In a bookstore, you do judge a book by its cover.
It's literally what you
People
do.
people buy books because of the author's name, the cover, the name, and the blurb on the back,
Yeah. Well,
or they read a little bit of it.
yeah, or the brand are a really good recommendation.
Yeah,
Like
it's
like if we
basic
look at old
structure of
Star Wars
marketing.
covers, some of them are like they're pretty cool, but like this is the coolest one by far and away.
I've read a
Like
lot of Star Wars books. This is one of the coolest.
yeah,
It really captures what this book is about. It's about lots of Jedi coming from different backgrounds. I mean, the focal character is a woman.
yeah,
That's not done unintentionally. I mean, Loden, who is out of all of these has the second most screen time,
yeah,
is in the background.
yeah.
He is amazing, but
I love that character so much. Oh my god.
yeah, which we'll get into. And there was just so much depth and structure. You've got this. I don't know if you noticed this. You've got the coming storm in the background. You've got the ships. It's beautiful art.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's evocative. It's inspiring.
Also, I
It
love her belt.
Yeah, just every touch about this is
Yeah.
so good. My main thing is if you like books, you want to buy this hardcover, you want it on your shelf. That's good production.
Yeah.
That's good marketing.
Like
In a store there.
yeah, like I actually cuz I'm working on my game room basically, but I'm going to need a bookshelf for my games. I'm going to have open space. So I want to have like a row with all my Star Wars books and have them all physically there, and I'm definitely just going to buy that just for that.
Yeah,
Also,
the
Wookiee with the
hardcover.
lightsaber is cool. I know. I love Buryaga.
Yeah, Briaga is so cool. But even further, Charlie, have you read any of the books physically from Del Rey? Or have you
No.
done all audiobooks?
All audiobooks.
Let me tell you, this book, the modern Star Wars books we have now, the quality on the production is so high.
Yeah.
These are books, if you are a book collector, you want to read. it felt good to flip the pages. It felt good. It was a nice, thick, heavy hardback. I mean, I got the book right here. These are thick pages. These aren't cheap. There's the production quality is great. It's got a great jacket, and even just the regular book itself, it's
So
soft.
looks
It
clean. It looks
it's
crisp.
clean, but that's the point. It's simple.
Yeah,
It's like the Jedi. It's simple. It's evocative. It's inspiring. It's beautiful without barely anything being there. How cool is that?
that's pretty neat.
I'm just saying, it takes a lot of work to print a book, and this is something you would have to read the physical book yourself to figure out to kind of get for yourself. It takes a lot to go in that, whether it's the typecasting, whether it's the spacing, the page layouts, whether it's just the art. It takes a lot to make a book, and every part of this book screams, excuse me, it screams Star Wars and it screams passion.
Yes.
And that's what you want. Again, this is a book I want on my shelf. It makes me say, wow, this is Star Wars. This is great. And I would like for you to talk about the audiobook quality a little bit because we had that differently, but I was just so impressed with the quality of this
Yeah.
book. Honestly, Del Rey, they're an imprint of Random House, so they're basically part of Random House production. Del Rey did an amazing job putting this book out, and I'm super happy with it.
Yeah. So the other thing, so like what you wanted me to talk about is about the audiobook. And I've been to be fair, I haven't listened to many audiobooks either. I've listened to Alphabet Squadron and Tarkin, which I both loved. Which also, side note, I was really glad to see Iriadu came back in this book, which is Tarkin's planet, which was really fun. Because I was like, oh, I know a lot about that. I know about the
And
Spire and like,
well, all the planets they brought up were not for no, like when he brought up the
yeah,
Outer Rim, he was mentioning stuff, not even like, oh hey Hoth, like Megito, like once.
yeah,
This was stuff that was everything that was there was either only in a show or it was completely stricken from canon, like Dantooine,
yeah,
which is one of the major locations in the both of the Knights of the Old Republic games.
yeah.
So
I was glad to see all that stuff, but specifically with the audiobook, like this was way better than both of them. With Mark Thompson as the narrator, it really felt like it was a lot of it was like near voice acting, and at worst, it was just someone convincingly playing a side character in D&D. Like that was like the worst level of like when he's trying to voice a young boy and they have these really weird accents. But like what I loved about it is that no matter what was happening, you could always tell who was talking and saying what. He like really committed to giving every character their own voice. One like and they had so many good minor details. Like whenever Buryaga speaks, you hear a Wookiee speak. And then yeah. So there's
that's
like
dope.
yeah, so there's like Wookiee noises during this, and then it's like it kind of like it's kind of weird how it does it, but it's like it's basically like a weird imitation into like that and then into what he's saying, which it made it so cool. Like whenever he talks, you get like the sense that he feels the annoyance that nobody actually understands him, like which I know you can read that, but like just hearing it and then just hearing like the him like follow it up with like, and yeah, no one understands me. Like basically it was like really cool. This game or not this game, this audiobook had like such a good commitment to quality to sound design, which I was really surprised with. Like every ship basically had its own noise. If things were impacting, you heard it. All like even like that, not to spoil the book, but like there's like a chase scene in it, and like they're riding animals, and like those animals have noises that I've never heard in Star Wars before, and like literally everything is like in there. Every time a lightsaber ignites or a blaster is shot, you hear it, and it's great. And it's just it feels like it's just literally explaining events to you, but you can hear the events. It uses like uh John Williams scores throughout, but I felt like more than the other books, it used it so appropriately. And there was actually a lot of Phantom Menace music in it.
Okay,
Of like
that's
the
actually
dun dun
really cool to know.
dun dun. Yeah.
I might go back and read and listen to the audiobook. I do a lot of driving, like I said. Yeah, I love reading, but man, I can appreciate when they do a lot for an audiobook, and that's really impressive. That's
Yeah,
that puts a lot of respect to how they published this book.
yeah. Also, I listened to the interview with Charles Soule, with that he did with Star Wars Explained, which I'd highly recommend. But like one of the things, because he saw that Mark Thompson was doing it, he's like, "Oh, Mark Thompson's like always really good about these," and he was like, "I want to just see how it went," and he was like, not to sound self centered, but he was like he did, but he was like, he like got engrossed in his own book, even though he knew exactly what was happening, just because it was that good, and like,
Yeah, and that is a perfect example of good production. He already knows what's going on, but it's so engrossing
yeah,
because the quality is there. Man, even sound design. Audiobooks have come a long, long way.
yeah, much better than
And
elementary school random little tapes. If you remember, we had those.
yeah, I mean, one of the most famous fantasy books, the Discworld books by Terry Pratchett, they're only on tapes and no one produces them, and it's grainy and you can barely hear the author. But now we're to the point where not only is the sound design awesome and clear and you have great narrators, there's music and sound in the background.
Yeah.
It's like a
Oh,
cool D&D campaign podcast kind
also,
of thing. That's cool.
one of the weird things, every time the Nihil shows up and they're like in their own area or something, they're not like, they don't have their own theme. So you just hear like faint rock music in the background whenever they're like partying and doing drugs and shit. It's kind of
Yeah.
funny.
Just so you know, in case you didn't, I can't remember how to say it. I can't remember if it's nihil or whatever. But in Latin, that means it's nothing. It means nothing. That's
Ah,
what that word means. Just for context, because they're all about the void and stuff like that.
yeah. That makes sense. I'm only
We'll get into the plot. That's actually a great question. If you want to know, um, I'm willing to talk about that
For
because
some
I
reason,
have
my
some
chat
things.
is now right of center. So
Why?
words are slightly cut off. I don't know. I think it's because I hit an emote button.
Ah, yeah, you might want to fix that.
Let me
All
resize
right.
it. I don't know. Which
Yeah.
is weird. Anyways,
Speaking of Charles Soule, I do want to talk about the writing, and we'll kind of go to my pros and cons of this because I don't want to like just go back and forth between shitting on it, and I'm really not going to shit on it to be
yeah.
fair. Um, but
You just
man,
hate sounding
Charles,
negative.
yeah, I don't like sounding negative because I really like this book. Charles Soule, he is a gifted writer. He has beautiful prose. He did such an amazing job of creating ambiance and feeling in this book. Like I really felt like even when I only got a few sentences of really establishing how each of them connected to the force, that really told me what
Yeah.
was going
That
on,
was
how they felt, how they connected. That was great writing. That is how you establish things where you can keep thinking about that and you learn a little bit more about the character. And it may not, yeah, your interpretation of that and my interpretation of that are going to be different.
yeah.
We're going to say, okay, this is some person who they imagine the force as a song. They imagine the force as a vast ocean.
Yeah.
That
But
tells you
it's
different
like
things.
it tells you about their character to a point, but it's good because that's like I like that it explains it as like their fundamental understanding. Like I think it's if I like it because I think it's their way of describing the indescribable, if that makes sense. Like it is their way of because the force is more so like a feeling, like it's a religion. It's like it's hope, it's faith, like it's all these different emotions. And it's like understanding your connection between you and the world, and that's just their interpretation of it for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, quite honestly, I don't think the force was ever truly that well laid out until they give Qui-Gon Jinn those lines where he was describing the force and it's like, oh, it's a hum, it's a flow that moves through everything in the universe.
Yeah,
And it's yeah, and I agree. Like Berg, that's kind of what I'm trying to say. It's part of their personality. It defines who they are and their connection with the force
exactly.
and their skills. Why does a character who is always experimenting see the force as this deep ocean?
Yeah,
Because he can go deeper and deeper. But to me, the further you get down, the more scary, unknown, dark
yeah,
pressure there's going to be there. And that tells you a lot about a character who's willing to push the boundaries, but knows there's going to be something.
yeah. Which is
We're going to
also
get in more into this into a second because I do want to talk about like the establishment that had
Yeah.
for not only the characters but for some world building things.
And I
Good
liked
man.
the one I loved. I think the one that I think sticks out the most to me is Buryaga's, where he talks about the tree and being just like a leaf on the tree, and there's so many other leaves and branches, and I like how it kind of. I think it's cool because I feel that connects to Kashyyyk. Like I feel because Wookiees always have like a strong sense of like home in their like general community with each other. That's like something that's always touched upon in like lore and whatever. Like they're very loyal, and so I think the way that his understanding of the Force connects him to people in that way, and understanding that it's just bigger than him, and they have like those literal giant trees on Kashyyyk. I think that's like really cool imagery.
Yeah. I mean, what Berg is saying, Soul said that Anakin saw the Force's sand. I mean, I haven't seen that, but it's believable.
That
It
makes
makes
sense.
sense. And it just tells you a lot about the characters. So I thought that was something that I haven't really seen. I've read a lot of Star Wars books, and there's always an attempt to describe the unexplainable. But that's the thing. When we can't describe things, we see them in ways only we can relate to them. We have
Right.
to we have to relate to things. We have to categorize things. It's just how people work. But I really want to talk about this. The world building, man.
So good.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Not only just like, hey, we created these new people and new factions and this new world, and you're really understanding the place where the Republic is at this point. He had to do that.
Yeah.
But did he have to literally recanonize battle meditation?
Definitely didn't, but I'm so glad he did.
Definitely didn't. But Avar Chris, essentially, he didn't say it directly, uses battle meditation, again, to what we saw Bastila do in Knights of the Old Republic and countless other books that aren't in canon. But that was amazing. He established how the Force flew through people and that you could experiment with it and learn new things, creating a storm, doing things that have never
Yeah.
been done
That
before
was
with the
like one of
Force.
the coolest moments in that book for me. Was that
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Sorry, you
Yeah,
just
you're
like
good.
pulled back, and I was like
No, you're
rereading
good.
something.
I was reading chat while I was listening to you. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like with what Berg is saying, the world building had to be great. It
Yeah,
had to be. But it was beyond that.
yeah.
It this
Like
is
there's
what
so many good little connections.
yeah, it
Like
just made sense.
the I forget what the other thing is. There's like a KOTOR reference in there that's really specific, but it's like I forget what the species name is, but it's like the like fish people or whatever. That's that
Mhm.
they accuse them of like because Bacta's being invented at this time, and they accuse them as like the thing that's like a little pre-Bacta that's in KOTOR, and they're like maybe they're trying to steal it. We don't know, like, which isn't the plot by the way, but that's like one of the theories they have, and I'm like that's like such a good little piece, and there's so many other good little pieces here and there throughout the book.
Yeah, it just had a lot of attention to detail. I mean, the whole storm thing to begin with, and again, describing the undescribable really showed how that the Nihil operated as a faction, just this literal being of chaos.
Yeah,
And that's what you want to do in world building. You want to make something that's evocative, interesting, but understandable. It can't just be out there. There has to be some shred of basis that you can attach to. And the storm metaphor really put them out there. So his world building is just fantastic.
yeah,
Speaking of awesome, and I have a few points on this where it faltered for me, but the action,
yeah,
it's some of the best described and written Star Wars action
yeah,
I've seen. It's fast paced, it's gripping, but it's understandable. You know what is going on. When
yeah,
a punch hits, you know it.
yeah,
When something explodes, you know it. You don't know why yet, but you find out as the characters are like, "Ooh,
yeah.
getting out of that shell shock," and
And it's
that's what's
like
important in a book. Is it's not a movie where you have to show what's going on. And you're like, "Oh, clearly, they shot it out of that ship," and no, the character's like, "Holy shit! I just watched my best friend die.
yeah.
What is going on right now?"
I think the audiobook does so well with the action scenes, it's absurd. Like that's where so much of the sound design comes in. And like the best scene throughout that like one of the best scenes in the whole book is like Porter Engle and his like little standoff that he has with the snipers. Like that whole thing, like that whole segment or whatever, is so good in the audiobook. Like that was like one of the ones where I was like, yo, this book is heat. I'm like it does such a good job of like just literally like the production's so good.
Yeah, Porter was so cool.
One of the things I was gonna say was like one of the worst things about this book is that so far it's only a book. Because I'm going through these awesome action scenes. I'm like, could someone at least like fan render a cutscene or something? Like,
yeah,
it's like so good.
Well, that's a genuine concern though, because there's so many of these kind of scenes, and they're written in a cinematic way, and it does take up a lot of the page.
Yeah,
It does take up a lot of time. Well, we'll get into that in a second, but before I start getting into my complaints and getting on my rant levels, I just want to say like the characters are amazing. Like
yeah.
Bell, Avar, Chris. Oh gosh, what is the one villain's name? Starts with a K. Is it Crass or Kavanagh? I already forget.
Oh god, there's so many.
Oh, it's Kassav.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Kassav,
Is that how
yeah.
you say it?
It's
You
Kassav in the audiobook, I think.
Okay. Oh, so Kassav. Kassav, he's a villain, man. You understand he is barbaric. He's brutal. He doesn't care about lives. He is a villain through and through. And he was a villain made for a book. He wasn't just like, okay, this was a movie in someone's head and they shift him over. No, he was brutal but still complex. And
Yeah,
it was interesting. And that was kind of the whole thing about the Nihil. It's like, yeah, they're this being of chaos and believe in nothing. They're just trying to do what's best for them. And even that they don't really do all the time. I mean, Loden, like you're saying, Loden, Porter, Briaga,
yeah.
these are levels of Jedi we have never seen before.
Porter's so stupidly badass in that scene.
Yeah, he's a 300-year-old Jedi. And he's not like Yoda or he's like this little tall guy. No, he's like
What species is he? Do we know?
Yeah, he's Ikurian. I always say this one wrong.
Oh, Korean or whatever. Also,
yeah.
Also with the audiobook, I literally don't know how anything is spelled, which is the inverse problem of reading the book, of not knowing how anything's pronounced.
Yeah.
Which
that is the hard part about Star Wars.
There we go. They have an image of Porter Engle, actually. I think.
It's a pretty weak one.
Yeah.
But anyways, he's just it made sense from a world building perspective. You have a character who's 300 years old. Same with Yoda. Yoda's like, hey, I'm pissing off. I'm gonna go take a sabbatical.
Yeah.
I'm not messing around with this.
Also, Yaddle was still alive at this time, which was apparently we're going to see at some point, which will be fun.
Yeah, I don't even know. But Porter is like, yeah, I've been explorer, I've been Jedi, I've been medic. Now I'm a cook because I just kind of get bored. I kind of do my thing.
Yeah.
And then he's all of a sudden like, you know what? I hate this side of me, but I'm gonna slice and dice.
Yep.
You made me mad.
He is like, I'm like, he's like, I'm chill, but like, I mean, you're kind of forcing my hand. I'm gonna have to murder all y'all. Like,
dude, it's man, it's got me speechless. Like that's not a good thing right now for me. But that scene, it was so powerful because he's this very calm character. He's not really saying much. He's just really happy to be there. And then all of a sudden he's like, "Hey, I'm not going to kill you because you're the bad guy or you have this plot against me. I'm going to kill you because you killed this creature of the light."
Yep.
Am I gonna think about letting
it's like,
you live?
It's basically like, bro, you killed my dog. You're all gonna die now.
Yeah, he John Wick's that shit. He was just like, you're dead.
It was so
that's
good.
nothing about it. Yeah, so that was really cool. There's a lot of great characters, and thank you, Berg, for your point in chat because this is a great transition for me. Like I said, this is a great book, and the reason I have complaints about this book are not because it's a result of like oh, this is just a bad book, and let me just shit on it. It's not even nitpicking. There's stuff that, because this book is so good, I expected from it. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. And certain characters were almost wasted to me. Bell is a perfect point for me. I feel like, yeah, Bell's arc was good. He grew a lot. He's a young guy. He needed that moment. He needed to be quite literally thrown and be made to fly. That was what his character needed, and realized, like, hey, it's not just about you all the time.
Yeah.
And he wasn't a selfish character. He couldn't face death without thinking of himself. And it was like that was his final step to becoming a Jedi Knight, which doesn't even end up happening. That's a whole other thing.
Right.
He's just one of those characters where I needed more time to understand him and really get at what is making him have this issue.
Exactly.
I didn't understand why he wasn't able to catch himself other than just, oh, hey, he is kind of a novice,
Yeah.
until how he caught himself. And that's the thing you want in a book, is you want to be able to understand patterns and guess how things are going to come. And then there's a little bit of a twist. So you get the novelty, but you also get the pattern. And man, there was just so many characters that it was hard for me to keep track of at
Yeah.
times. And the ones I really liked, I was like, dude, just give me more of them. Because
Right.
we've got characters who are dying, and I go, wait, who were they? Oh, that guy. It's like, that sucks.
Yeah. And I was
So
like,
many
that was,
people
he
die.
could have been cool. Which,
Yeah, exactly.
like, on
There
one
was,
hand, I love the idea of, right, that, like, any character can, like, really die at any time with this era. But at the same time, it's like, I'm like, well, shit, maybe I wanted more of him, or it's like, well, I didn't really know him that well. It was like, and then other times I'm like, I want everything to be Loden Greatstorm all the time. Like,
yeah,
it's
and
like,
Loden and Porter. Like, it was cool. And there's some really cool characters in here. And just from a writing perspective, sometimes you just have a minor character who you don't explore.
yep.
But it's not a character. It's usually villains. It's usually side characters. So, like, what was the Gungan's name? It was. Oh,
I don't remember what his name was, but I just
I gotta
remember
find it for
that
Jake.
coming up, and I was like, I'm so glad that they made a gun something else. Because Gungans are only in the prequels, and they are only ever made fun of, and that's like all they do. Like, even
Yeah.
in The Mandalorian, Bill Burr just makes fun of Gungans.
I totally forgot about that, actually.
Yeah.
So let's find it. And that's the thing is, for characters like that, it's okay that I don't understand them too much. I really don't have to. It's not the point.
Right.
But oh yeah, Elzar, I wanted more of him.
Yeah.
He was so interesting. Loden was super interesting. And yeah, he's there, but I never really get to understand him other than like he's basically like a paladin in classic fantasy.
Yeah.
He is perfect. He has no flaws. Now he's not a Mary Sue. I mean, he actually does things, or I would be what? Oh gosh, I forget. I think it's like a Jerry Sue.
Yeah, whatever. That
But
term I never knew until the sequel trilogy.
yeah, I don't know. I'm just disappointed because I had a lot of characters that I was like, I really wanted you to establish this more. Like, I wanted to see more Belle. I wanted to see more Loden.
Yeah.
Even Avar. It's like I wanted to put her in situations where it wasn't just political. Yeah, it's Gary. It's Gary Sue.
Gary Stew.
From I think it's Gary Sue. It doesn't matter. Anyways, it's just a writing term. I just would like more focus.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a general complaint with Star Wars novels for me. I think Thrawn is totally different. I think Thrawn had perfect focus, and that was a great book.
Yeah.
I just felt like
I
we
think that
wasted
comes
some
through in
moments.
like the newer like character based books, where it is more traditional novel in a sense that it can afford to just be focused on the character. Like the Tarkin book is literally all Tarkin, the Thrawn books are literally all Thrawn focused, you know. Like you meet these
Yeah,
other characters, but at the end of the day, it's a book about Thrawn. It's a book about Tarkin.
yeah, and this book, a lot of it was like this political intrigue and mystery, of trying to figure out what happened and what this um all led down to. And
Yeah.
you're like, yeah, I this isn't Game of Thrones. You didn't write characters that, if they die, I'm like, that's sad because of this, but also they were kind of a bad dude. So like,
Yeah, but that being said, we're only one book in, and there's going to be several books and comics and possibly
yeah.
games and maybe kind of a show. Like,
And they already killed like 20 named Jedi, and it's probably like 5 named
yeah,
Jedi, and they've killed 10 off screen, but
yeah.
it's just
My only issue with like when they kill off Jedi is like so many of the characters and the things in this book don't have art. I'm like, what did that guy even look like, dude?
that's the thing is the
Like, as
less
much
you
as I
can
can like
connect
a character at like start, it's like if I
the
did,
less you can connect to it, it's not your fault. Like
yeah,
that's the problem with sci-fi and fantasy. It is you have to make things that are unique and interesting, but you need to be able to understand them. If they're completely alien, you're just left there the whole time going, "Yeah, I don't understand what's going on." I
yeah,
get
you're
maybe
just
their
like,
motivations, but I don't understand what they look like. I don't understand who they are. It's really, and you want to be in that theater of the mind.
yeah,
You want to be, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Imagine this scene. And that's what it was for me. Porter, I could, when he's fighting those snipers, I can imagine every crisp detail of that.
yeah,
But the characterization wasn't as on point. Still trying to figure out what Master Sifo Dyas looks like. Yeah. He changes a lot depending on what source you're looking at.
never,
Um,
never ends.
So my last real point for all of this, my cons, pacing. This was the major issue of this book, and it literally had the different. It had the opposite of what most books feel like, where you've got this really soggy middle, and then the ending and the beginning are amazing. Now, don't get me wrong, the beginning was really cool. I liked the
Yeah,
characters. I liked the freight captain before everything went to hell. It was really gripping. But for me, I found myself going, "Oh, can we slow down? Because I want to learn about these characters."
that's fair.
Like, I'm like, this is awesome. This is really gripping. There's a lot of tension. In this book, he does tension so well.
Yeah,
The plot is great in that terms. But man, I was just like, okay, let's wheel it back, man. I want to learn these characters
yeah,
in the middle, he's balancing all this tension and this flow of these different characters. You want the villains to be on screen, and then you're like, okay, but can I have my heroes back? And then you're with the heroes for a little bit. You're like, oh no, no, let me see Kassav. Let me see the Eye. Let me see the Tempest. Oh, it's just so cool.
yeah.
And then you
Give me
get to
some
the end.
Marcion Rowe.
Yeah. And then you get to the end, and all of a sudden, it's just all over the place.
Yeah,
It I was like, okay, so I get he had this plot to take over, but the line that killed me the most is when he's like, "You now have the battle paths." I'm like, this sounds like an 8-year-old writing
oh, the
his
battle path.
first
Yeah,
stuff. I was like, this is so dumb. And then
Charles
they're
Soule
flashing
actually
back.
talks about that in this interview, and it makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah, I mean, I
I was
get what he was
confused as
saying.
hell when that happened.
It
Oh,
went from a character who was so serious to suddenly melodramatic.
yeah,
And that's fine. That's how Emperor Palpatine would talk. But that's also Emperor Palpatine.
yeah,
Not this character who I was like, wow, he's interesting, really collected. And then all of a sudden he's just absolute evil. And you're like,
yeah.
now I'm confused. And it's like the ending of the book, counting the epilogue, which also is entirely in italics.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's all italics. So it was so difficult to read.
What's such a random thing? All
Yeah,
right.
it was so weird. Um, you know, where
I'll tell
Elzar,
you
he's
what the tech or the audio wasn't in italics.
yeah, well, thanks for that. Um, he has this horrible vision. He starts bleeding from his nose, and I'm like, what? I'm like, it seeds the next book. I get
Yeah,
that, but it's like we had no idea he was going to start getting prophecies like this, and he could touch. He didn't seed the ending very well.
yeah.
Still, a very cool
I
ending.
was
I really like what happened with Marcian
yeah.
because he was badass. So let me just summarize this up, and then I will give you the floor to talk about what you want. Love the book. Can't wait for the sequel. Had its issues, but man, it did a great service to the canon, established some evocative villains and heroes. But I just wanted to slow down and learn about the characters before they literally died.
Yeah. I
8 out of
entirely
10.
get that. On the bright side, it is Star Wars. So Star Wars, we can literally go back to any point and tell a story, which is what makes the universe so good. But at the same
Yeah.
time, like when it is your introduction is their death, it's super unfortunate. Like,
Yeah, and I found myself like Jorah. Like I was really starting to understand this character and like her, and then she dies, and I'm like, and by the way, the scene she dies in, not that descriptive. It's like, oh, she's gone, which does establish that feeling you're talking about. It's like sometimes people just die,
yeah,
and that's what we saw in the Clone Wars. But
yeah,
that theme really hadn't been established, other than just like, hey, sometimes just shit flies out of the universe and kills 8 billion people. I get that, but in terms of like a Jedi, it was we didn't have a lot of main characters who were just like dropping and I cared about. That was
yeah.
the first character I was
It
like,
felt like I kind of reminded me of like an episode of Clone Wars. Specifically, it's the one where Maul and Savage try to hire Hondo to, or basically Hondo's crew, because they need like basically people that they can boss around to go like help them terrorize everything.
right.
But it reminds me of when that other Jedi that accompanies Obi-Wan gets killed off there, and I was like, we literally never saw this character outside of like episode 2 in their death.
Yeah.
It was like, that's like what it felt like the most to me. By the way, side note, I don't know why I needed to talk about that episode, but the best part is Hondo making fun of Darth Maul. He's like, how tough can he be? He can't even beat Kenobi. It's like,
Which Kenobi is like the most badass character ever.
yeah, but it's
And
so
that's
funny because Maul, you could tell it just angers the shit out of him in that scene.
yeah. Yeah, and that's the kind of thing for me. It's like I finished the book this morning and I sat down and I was talking to my girlfriend. I was like, man, I just didn't get enough screen time. Because
Yeah,
like a character like Obi-Wan, he's badass. But he's badass for a lot of reasons. And I know that, and that's why I loved
yeah.
him.
And we have
And these
7
characters,
seasons of a TV show and 3 movies to tell you why.
yeah,
4
and it's
movies.
like as of right now, without that focus, I didn't really know who to love other than Load and Greatstorm, which fucking easy. That's
Yeah,
he's badass as shit. His lightsaber's gold, okay?
yeah.
First of all.
It's also the
I
most
don't know.
Star Wars name ever made.
Yeah. Except at the end when they use that, they're like, I like your name.
That was really weird, but
Charles, quit jerking your writing dick off. Like, I don't care.
him or whoever else is on the writing team that created that character.
I feel like that was Favreau. He's not even on that team, but it's just like he's like, can you name a guy Great Storm? Why?
Well, it's so good though.
Sounds cool.
I love that character's name. It's just the most Star Wars thing. Like it's such a sci-fi name.
Yeah, I mean, but seriously, kind of my paladin comment that I made before, naming is so important, and that is where Star Wars can struggle sometimes.
Giving you
Because
things you can't pronounce.
giving things you can't pronounce that you can't understand. Load and Greatstorm, you told me who this guy was, and I can imagine a name like that in any setting. You say Load and Greatstorm, and we're playing D&D. I'm imagining this paladin with a great warhammer on this giant mountain. You describe it in this. I see a Jedi like that, and yeah, Greatstorm is Skywalker-esque because he is quintessential good.
Yep.
He's a character where you look at him and you're like, he's got to come out on top always, right? If something bad happens to him, that's tense, and that's why the ending was good in that regard. Is you took the character who was the most good.
Oh yeah, we probably
likable.
shouldn't spoil this because Berg hasn't finished it, but
yeah, well, Berg, that's your fault.
Mr.
No,
I'm
not
gonna
gonna
be spoiler free in my approach.
Hey, everything I wrote was spoiler free.
This is true. This is true.
No, but I mean,
I'm trying to look out for viewers.
No, quite genuinely though, I think what happened to him was expectable.
Yeah, it was. He kind of overshoots his shot to be good because
yeah, but you would never see how that was coming. So look out for that, Berg. That's gonna be
yeah.
fun.
Regardless, like, yeah, it's like, yeah. I mean, it's like you can see it coming, but it's like it doesn't happen the way you'll think it happens.
Yeah, which is what you want in writing.
Yeah.
Charlie, do we have some questions that we wanted to take? I know
I know
people are
Berg
pretty
asked
much.
a few if you wanted to go up because he asked stuff about story and plot, and I think that's something we should get more into. Is just general
Yeah, for
plot of
sure.
the book because it
Mhm.
kind of splits off into threes and reconverges. So,
But
however we want to tackle that.
let's see.
But until then,
Does the light of the Jedi end with a bigger conflict, or is it mostly self-contained in the book? I mean, it's setting up a sequel, so there is a bigger
yeah,
conflict that
it does a lot of
establishes.
world building for that era. I think that was like the heaviness of the book. I think
The
that's what,
conflict is solely established in the book of what we know right now. I mean,
yeah,
they could come out of left field in the next couple of books and be like the Sith or these empires, but as of right now, I would say it's pretty
yeah,
self-contained. So I
yeah,
do think reading this book will be really helpful moving forward into the rest of what we're going to see here because the world building here was amazing.
yeah. And like, not to spoil what happens, but essentially, the way the Nihil operates is they do what they need to do to make sure they're off the Jedi's radar after what happens. Like, they're still going to be a threat, and they're still going to be around. From what I know, it's this era is going to come out in 3 phases, and I don't know if that's just restricted to like books, comics, and short
Yeah.
stories that are in the magazines now, or if it's going to be if like phase 2 or 3 we get games and movies or
Yeah, we still don't know a lot yet.
shows.
And by the way, yeah, Jake, it is High Republic era. So we're looking before this is 50 years before the Clone Wars, 100 years,
200.
200. Okay. I
It's
can't
because
remember the
the
exact
reason you
date.
got 50 was because the Acolyte is going to be 50 years before the Phantom Menace, and that's
Thank you.
technically still High Republic. And
Hey,
this
also,
the way this era is going to go is it's basically going to take us right up to Phantom Menace by the end of phase 3 or something, which is probably what Acolyte's going to be. That's our
okay.
like only
Yeah,
foreshadowing in the other media for this era, and they weren't like High Republic Acolyte. So
yeah. Hey, Jake, by the way, I found the name of the Gungan, which h- hilarious. Wet Bub.
yes,
I forgot about and
uh,
just he was threatening though. Like I generally thought he was gonna lay the hurt on someone. So
I couldn't. His
you need
his
to
voice in the
read the book.
audiobook is so funny.
Is it okay? I have to read. I have to get to this
It's
audiobook.
not like Jar Jar Binks like, oh, what's up, Mesa? But like, I think
No,
at some
he's
point he's like,
intimidating.
owie. You're just like, god damn it.
Yeah, I think they did a good job of like this is a tough character. Like relax. What you think about Gungans is
No,
because slapstick comedy. He's not Jar Jar Binks, but dark. This is
yeah.
a character who is
Well,
genuine.
we actually have cool Gungans like that we see in like Clone Wars, but they're always just made to be so goofy. Like for everyone listening, the audio version of this show, I was moving like an idiot.
Bouncing up and down.
Yeah,
I don't know. The
exaggerated
slapstick.
arm movements.
Yeah, the
Missile.
slapstick comedy in that is just so bad. I don't even want to get. We already did an episode about me ranting about this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
General
General
Tarkus
Tarkus.
isn't bad. Yeah,
Exactly.
great character.
But yeah,
Oh man, I actually really liked how they set up the villains in this. This is something aside that I just want to kind of mention.
yeah,
Star Wars is just really good about establishing rules of three, which is just like what people do in writing anyways.
yeah.
But
Or
there was
telling
a
jokes.
lot of yeah, there was a lot of conflict. There was a lot of like, yeah, these people could tear each other apart at any moment, and that really helped establish chaos. So,
Yeah, I like their
Charlie,
tension.
have you read the High Republic comic,
No, I
Dark Lord
haven't.
Snow?
I don't. I need to actually start reading comics. By the way,
Yeah,
if you didn't know, Odie, Charles Soule is the guy that did the Vader comics.
I did know that. Yeah,
Okay, I wasn't
I
sure.
was reading. I was reading his background. He's also an attorney, so just fun sides.
Well, that's funny because he wrote Daredevil too.
Yeah, I know.
That actually makes it
Uh,
really funny. But yeah, I was super glad about the book in general. Like, I mean, I'm not like a huge reader, so it probably doesn't say much, but it is my favorite book.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good
Which,
book to start reading Star Wars. Quite genuine,
yeah, you
like
don't need to
Jake.
know like all the background. It just gives you random information sometimes.
If you've watched the movies, just read this. You'll enjoy it. It's very cinematic.
Yeah,
Getting to this meme of a question, do you think they added an evil Gungan because of the Jar Jar Snoke memes? No, he's not that evil. I think sometimes for me in
he's
Star
like
Wars,
extra Hondo evil. Like
yeah,
he's
yeah,
pirate evil.
yeah, he's a pirate, quite literally. And it's just like sometimes I feel like when they make characters, it's kind of like if you were a dungeon master or creating a story. Sometimes if you've got a universe, you're just like, I don't know what to make this character. So you're just like, roll a dice and be like, oh well, I guess it's gonna be this. It didn't really have a lot to do with his character,
Yeah.
other than the name of Wet Bub was just kind of fun.
Oh, what pub? I like Berg's question. Do you think Legends characters will be in this era? And I definitely think so. I don't think we're gonna get like any or many High Republic or like we're not gonna get like KOTOR characters or anything in it, but like I can
They're gonna
certainly
reestablish Mandalorian stuff. They're gonna
yeah,
reestablish KOTOR stuff. Like
yeah,
it's just not gonna be. I kind of agree with you. I don't think we're gonna get like, oh hey Revan, which we might.
yeah.
Don't
Well,
get
I
me
think
wrong.
it'd be very interesting to set more things in this time period as it goes on. Something akin to like what we have with Doctor Afra, like kind of just like a character that just goes around exploring for the most part. I think there's a lot of stories and stuff to be told there, as this is like it's an expanding universe, so we can see different civilizations kind of earlier. Which is kind of something I actually wanted to see more in this book, but the way the book worked out, it didn't really necessarily need it for that book.
Yeah, that is the thing.
Like so much of what happens literally happens in space and over communications, basically.
I mean, there's like five major locations in this. And when the major theme is about expansion and order, and that's really what the theme is what they're trying to do. The Jedi, the
Yeah,
Republic, they're trying to expand their order and help people. We didn't really get a lot of settlements. We got one place that was representative of that, and we got it for two or three chapters, and most of that was localized in one
yeah.
occasion. There wasn't that. That's the
We
thing
have
about
like the
the
planet at the
Mandalorian.
beginning. I forget what it's called. I'm being dumb. And then we also have
Hetzel.
Coruscant. Yeah, Hetzel. We have Coruscant. We have a little bit of Iriadu, but even that's mostly over comms and like the whole. Well, I don't want to spoil the scene. It's kind of vaguely describing. It's kind of spoiling the whole point. But
The night where the Night Hill stay,
yeah,
like their location.
yeah, that too.
I
But
think
yeah,
that's just a good way to put it. So
yeah, which
I knew
I love.
someone. Yeah, that was such cool world building. Sorry, I knew
But
someone else asked a
I
question that
know
just is.
Oppo Rancisis, they changed him to or his species stuff so that because he's like the only one that you ever heard. So we know he survives Order 66 and that he's alive during this time as well.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, because that's in another Souls thing. Also, I like that they have the Santekas, which are only ever used at the very beginning of the sequels, really.
Mm-hmm.
But Charles Soule basically said in his interview with Star Wars Explained that he really wants to like build up like this family and this character that is only in this literally in the Force Awakens at the very beginning. It's the old dude that gets killed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's trying to build up that family stuff. It's essentially what I got from it is they're kind of like the Rockefellers of their era with hyperspace.
Yeah, which is really cool to be exploring. That's always a good thing you want to do in sci-fi and fantasy if you can, is like once you've created and established your world, you give it depth by saying, here, hey, here's how these things work in my world. And then
Right.
you get a little more of suspension of disbelief. I mean, the
Exactly.
hyperspace stuff was really cool. It's like, hey, the reason we call it hyperspace is not just because you're going super fast. It's because you're going to basically another plane of existence.
Yeah, literally.
And it's kind of like how they get around light speed travel. It's not, hey, we go faster than light, and so we call it hyperspace. It's no, to go faster than the speed of light, we have to actually go into another plane of existence first.
Yeah. Which they talk Charles Soule talks about that in terms of the path. So the way he described it really was you should be looking at hyperspace as really like it's like having to construct highways through another plane of existence, and think about basically the paths as like it's like just going on random back roads through another plane, if that makes any sense. That's
Hmm.
kind of the way I understood when he tried to explain it, where it's like it's the way he talked about it was like you know how like, and that's easier for us because we live in the Midwest, but like when you can go like hiking or out into the woods somewhere, and you can just kind of find like paths that other people have been on or like that animals have been on, and then you can like, you know, if you want to wander around, you'll find some cool stuff like that whenever you go like hiking.
Hmm.
So I really like that idea, that it's kind of just more natural path, which I think can actually relate to like how Ezra got those. What are the like the space whales called?
I don't remember, but I know what you're talking about.
But like they probably have their own like somewhat hyperspace esque lanes, you know, because their hyperspace is probably different than the one that they have to use for ships, because the ships have to basically go on this other plane of existence. So if that's like the natural thing, I think that's really cool.
Yeah. So just for some context, because Jake's asking about this. Jake, if you really want to understand more about how they changed light speed travel, I really recommend reading this book.
It does
But
a lot
basic,
to explain it.
yeah. So my best way to explain this is, maybe I shouldn't say a different plane of existence. It's probably, just think about like an extra dimension. So it's kind of like
Yeah,
how wormhole
exactly.
kind of stuff works. So when they were striking different things, the Haldo maneuver works because they were just about to hit hyperspace.
Exactly.
They were just about to go there. But the only other way to do anything like that is to jump to hyperspace and then out of hyperspace right into
Something
an enemy, which
you see in the book
we see in the book. But from what we understand, the only way you can crash into something in hyperspace,
is if it's literally also in that plane.
a
Or
giant stationary object in that dimension, which you're not going to have in a hyperspace lane, or you're
yeah,
literally crossing paths with another hyperspace lane.
yeah, which
So,
would be moving at the speed of light is improbable and nearly impossible. But we know for a fact, because the Mandalorian, we can see that when you do go into hyperspace, things can travel together. Like we see the Imperial shuttle being chased by Slave One in hyperspace. So that's why it's like believable when they come out at the same time, because that just means Slave One has tracking in hyperspace,
right.
or at least that technology exists at that point.
Yeah. Do y'all have any more questions before we sign off? Yeah, it's really cool. I really like, seriously, probably just listen to the audiobook. I mean, I'm going to tell you to buy the book because I'm
I'm
a
buying the
huge
book
ass,
at some point, but
yeah, I'm a huge ass nerd. So I just
I
like having a
also don't have a
hardcover.
bookshelf, so it's gonna sit in like, you know, next to my other books in like a drawer.
Yeah, we have 5 bookshelves in my apartment.
Nice.
So we're kind of crazy here.
Yeah. I'm trying to get it with Twitch subs and donos and selling everything on Mercari and door dashing. That's
No,
how
I
I'm
get
trying
it,
to
buddy.
get my money for getting my bookshelf.
Cool.
But yeah,
All
that's
right. I
my
think
game.
I think we're good.
I think that
Uh,
covers mostly everything.
yeah, I think we really cover. I mean, there's some stuff that like I don't want to really get out in the weeds in. That's really cool, just because I know Berg has it.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't want to spoil much of it.
yeah, and I mean, it's one of those things where I enjoyed it enough that I'm like, hey, if you're listening to this, go ahead and just go get the book. You know, that's
Yeah.
my recommendation. Get the book. It's
Get the
really
book
cool.
or get the audiobook some way or another and take the
Yeah,
story.
it's either way. It's the book.
Listening to a
Absorb the story.
plot summarization or anything like won't do it justice, because that is something actually worth experiencing.
Yeah, there's a
And
lot of world building in this. It really establishes where we are at in this timeline. Read the comic for the next podcast. We'll talk about that. That's
I think we could at least catch up on like certain series of comics. I know I have the entire Kanan series. I have the Darth I have the Son of Dathomir, the Maul ones. but I still need. I like to buy them physical because they're comics. I'd much rather like actually be able to look at the art. But yeah.
Can I get a link to the audiobook? I'm interested, but I know the name of it is. I mean, I'll just give you the Audible link. I'll look it up real quick.
Yeah, it's Light of the Jedi. Charles Soule is the Star Wars: The High Republic, Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule. You can definitely look that up. I just use Audible, and I have credits every month. I think Star Wars Explained actually has a Audible link, but there's so many where you can get it free, but then you technically have to purchase it. But you get the book for free with it, which is nice. But it's honestly great if you just want to listen to Star Wars stuff because there's always Star Wars content that's always coming out. And actually, Audible lists all the canon Star Wars stuff together, and like on a page.
Mm-hmm.
But now they're gonna have issues because they already had another book set as 1, and now this is gonna be 1, and there's gonna be 2 and 3 with High Republic. But yeah. Anyway,
cool.
It's been fun. It's been real.
Yeah.
Hope you guys enjoyed. And if you want to keep up with the show, we are on Anchor, we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube, we're here live on Twitch as we're streaming this. We're on literally so many services. Actually, it's kind of disgusting. Let me go through and I will read all of what we're on. Right. Let me view public site because it always takes me to my dashboard. But yeah. So obviously we're here live on Twitch. I post the show over on YouTube. We're on Spotify. We're on Breaker, Google Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Anchor. Like there's so many ways to intake the show. There's no excuse not to listen to it. Feel free to share it with your friends. And yeah, if you want to follow us at ORR Show over on Twitter for Outer Rim Radio Show. Apple Podcasts, we're working on Apple. It's literally such a process with Apple. Everything else is easy. Like
they have an onboarding process. It would be something we want to do in the future for sure. Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of things we want to do with this podcast, and for sure expanding as far as we can is something we look into. So
also, if you listen to it on actual streaming services and not just YouTube and Twitch, it actually helps us out more because of a Anchor sponsorship, which they give us. And they do all the distribution for this podcast, which is really nice. But yeah, and then everything else. If you want to catch the stream ever and you're listening to us, it's twitch.tv/Savage Gaming, SAVIDGE Gaming. Just because my last name's spelled weird. But yeah. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you later. Peace.
Bye, guys.